Here we are, part two, parent story that they shared, and I want to share with you. So, long story short, summing up part one is that this family went on a trip on a ferry and they didn't think first to go try it out, which is a normal thing. You don't think of it because we're like, oh, we're just getting on a boat, no big deal. But in fact, a ferry can be very terrifying for any child that's never done it before. In fact, it gives me anxiety to go on a ferry with a car because there's so many cars and you like have to park perfectly and squeeze in, and I hold my breath, and not to mention the fact that I get motion sickness. So you take all those things into account. It would probably be a very good idea to give a trial run to a ferry, especially because we have a lot of them around us on the island. So maybe that would have helped. Maybe that would have prepared him to know what was going on. Or maybe they would have said, you know what, maybe we'll set this one out, which hopefully not. Hopefully they would have, continued. But another thing, because he became so upset, this triggered her memory, because when they went to stay at the house, it was a house that they rented. It wasn't even a hotel, but he was the baby then. He was younger. He was like about 2, she said, and he used to take his bath in the sink, and he loved to take his bath in the sink. She tried to give him a bath in this sink, and it was like, nope. Different sink, not going to happen. And she had a very difficult time for the remainder of a trip. And then they went down to the beach, was another thing that I touched on as far as exposing them to the beach, if you can, because obviously it's cold at certain times of the year, or exposing them to sand during like sensory play and water. He didn't like the beach either. So now they spent all this money and went on this trip with the family and spent the majority of the time with him very, very upset, very agitated, and sensory overload, and is not having the trip whatsoever. So this prompted him at one point to decide that he had enough and he was going to escape, which brings us to our next tip from this parent, which is not funny, but I'm laughing because he was like, no, I've had it. I'm getting out of here. 2 and change, he decided to hit the road, and he ran away from where they were on the beach, and everyone's looking for him, going crazy, and someone spotted him climbing over like a sand dune trying to get away. Thank God that they were able to catch him. But the next tip, number 2, is besides exposing them to the beach, make sure that your child is wearing bright clothing. You might want to consider this when packing your bags for your trip, any getaway. Make sure that your child has a bright shirt on, because God forbid they decide, no, I've had it and I want to get out of here. You want to have eyes on them at all times. So I thought that this was a really great point to bring up, something pretty basic, and maybe you already do it and you already thought of it, but a very good point. Make sure that your child is wearing bright clothing when you are on your vacation or headed there.